Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. Follow the show on Twitter and Blue Sky at Cup of Joe Pod. Email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. You can support the show at paypal.me/cupofjoepod. I am also on Cash App and Venmo at TheJoeyHarris. If you would like to send me just a couple of bucks that way, I would sure appreciate it. More coffee money, am I right? And folks, as we get started here, just a couple of things. I want to send out a quick acknowledgement and rest in peace to two members of the wrestling community, kind of not prominent out front members, but certainly valued members nonetheless in the Carolinas wrestling world. Brett Wolverton, a longtime ring announcer and all-around good guy, passed away in the past week. I did not know him at all. I had seen him just a couple of times, but from everything that I've read and what I've seen, just an all-around great guy. And Kerwin Silfies also passed away, a longtime director for the WWE, passed away after a private battle with some health issues, and just the outpouring of respect and love for both of these gentlemen last week just really touched me. So my deepest thoughts, prayers, and condolences to their friends and fans and family at this time. And folks, also today we take a look at Starrcade 1995 from WCW. And when I started this podcast, I wanted to take a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network. And since then, the show has kind of evolved a little bit. We also do interviews with wrestling personalities and our longer annual shows where we take a look at different shows, but I still wanted to keep that main thread going, and I started out January of 1988, what I called my main timeline, to go forward from there. And we've also gone back and filled in some spots and gaps and holes, but I still wanted to keep that main timeline, and I always maintained that I would at least do the podcast from 1988 through WrestleMania 17, when everything changed right after the sale of WCW to the WWE, as well as ECW going down. Then the network goes off of Peacock, as you know, and I had enough shows in the can. I said, well, I can at least get a couple of months under my belt before I have to decide what to do. And then the network, at least the WWE shows, popped up on Netflix, but still not all of the WCW or ECW shows are out there. And there are torrent sites, but I wanted to always have my stuff be where everybody can benefit from them and can have access to them. And so some ECW and some WCW stuff is out there. So starting 1996, as of right now, is on hold until everything is out there. After a few months, I may reevaluate and go forward with 1996 WWF and then pick up the other stuff as it comes readily available. But after this week, when we finish 1995, I'm going to then go forward and finish 2005, the shows that I was doing, and then go to 2009 and go from there. And I'll let you all know what years and what shows I'm going to do as I do them. But today we do take a look at Starrcade 1995 from WCW. Starrcade 1995 was shown on pay-per-view on December 27, 1995 from the Nashville Municipal Auditorium in Nashville, Tennessee. There were 8,200 in attendance, and the show did 75,000 buys. We start out with our intro. This is for the World Cup of Wrestling. Tony Schiavone, Bobby Heenan, and Dusty Rhodes welcome us to Starrcade. They talk about what we're going to see. Chris Benoit versus Jushin Liger with Sonny Ono. Benoit starts out pushing Liger. Benoit with a shoulder block. Liger with some arm drags. Benoit goes out and Liger hits a dive. Test of strength. Liger with the flying head scissors. Benoit with a tilt-a-whirl backbreaker. Back and forth. Benoit goes out again. Benoit gets Liger down. Benoit with a clothesline. Benoit with a modified crab. Benoit chops Liger. They battle in the corner. Benoit with a German suplex for a couple of 2 counts. Liger with a bow and arrow. Into a reverse crossface. Into a modified camel clutch. Benoit drops back to break the hold. They trade holds and counters. Benoit hits a superplex. He slams Liger down. He misses the diving headbutt. Liger hits a cannonball and a powerbomb for a 2 count. Liger hits a brainbuster for a 2 count. Benoit comes back with a shot. He hits a series of German suplexes. He powerbombs Liger and hits the flying headbutt. Kevin Sullivan comes to ringside. He gets up on the apron. This gets the ick factor with the benefit of hindsight, folks. This distracts Benoit, allowing Liger to get a roll-up to win. Mean Gene Okerlund talks to Eddie Guerrero. He says what happened to Chris Benoit was wrong and that he is honored to be chosen to be a representative for WCW. Koji Kanemoto with Sonny Ono versus Alex Wright. Slow to start. They have a feeling out process. Wright with an armbar. They circle each other. Kanemoto with a leg takedown. He works on Wright's arm. They trade wrist locks. Wright with an arm drag. Wright with some shoulder blocks. They spill to the outside. Wright with a sliding drop kick. Wright with a suicide dive. Wright with a snap mare. He follows it up with a sleeper. Kanemoto gets to his feet and breaks the hold. He chops Wright in the corner. He hits some elbows to Wright. He hits a spin wheel kick. Kanemoto puts Wright on the ropes. He drop kicks Wright to the outside and hits a suicide dive on Wright. They battle to the outside. Kanemoto hits the moonsault, but doesn't cover. Wright hits a German suplex for a 2 count. Wright with a scoop slam. He hits a fallaway splash, but Kanemoto has his leg on the ropes. Double drop kick and both men are down. Wright with a reverse crossbody for a 2 count. Kanemoto with a 360 spin leg drop for a 2 count. Wright hits a drop kick as Kanemoto was coming off the top rope. Wright hits a superplex for a 2 count. Kanemoto hits snake eyes and a double pick rollover to get the pin. Mean Gene talks to Sonny Ono. He is ecstatic that New Japan is winning. Tony, Bobby, and Dusty talk about what has happened so far. Masahiro Chono with Sonny Ono versus Lex Luger with Jimmy Hart. Luger gets a great ovation when he comes out, which surprised me. I guess it's root for the home team moment. The bell rings and they circle each other. Luger attacks Chono. He gets a side headlock. He hits a shoulder block. Luger with a press slam. Luger keeps the attack up. Chono comes back with a flying forearm and a kick. Luger knocked outside. He regroups with Hart. Chono comes out as well. Both get back in. Test of strength. Luger runs Chono into a turnbuckle. Chono reverses a suplex. He beats Luger down in the corner. They trade blows. Chono with a sleeper. Chono gets the STF on. Luger gets out. Chono with an inverted atomic drop. Chono hits the Mafia kick. Chono goes up top and comes off, but Luger hits the back elbow and gets the torture rack on. Chono gives up and WCW gets its first win. Mean Gene talks to Sting. He says it's 2-1 and they are coming on strong. Mean Gene says that Kensuke Sasaki took the U.S. title from Sting. Sting says that he's out for revenge. He then talks about the triangle match coming up. He says things are getting edgy. Johnny B. Bad with Kimberly versus Mr. Saito with Sonny Ono. Ono tries to put Kimberly down, but she gets the better of him. Bad and Saito trade blows. Saito with the modified choke and sleeper. Bad gets out. They trade shots. They chop each other hard. Bad ran into a turnbuckle. Saito chokes Bad on a turnbuckle. Ono chokes Bad with the Japanese flag. Saito with the belly-to-back suplex. He gets a 2 count. He then gets a series of 2 counts. He and Ono choke Bad again. Saito with a side Russian leg sweep. Bad comes back with a knee lift. He hits a double axe handle. Bad with a sunset flip for a 2 count. Bad knocks Saito down. Bad with a suplex. Saito throws Bad over the top rope to get disqualified. Saito goes after Kimberly, but Bad takes him out. Super Brawl ad. Mean Gene talks to Jimmy Hart and Lex Luger. Gene asks him what's up with Kevin Sullivan, and Hart says don't worry about it. Luger talks about the triangle match. He says he's coming after Randy Savage and he will be alone for the triangle match. Shinjiro Otani with Sonny Ono versus Eddie Guerrero. An Eddie chant goes out. They circle each other. Guerrero with a side headlock. Otani with an arm lock. They trade moves and counters. Otani ties Guerrero up in the ropes. Guerrero comes back. Guerrero with a snap mare. Otani comes back with a leg lock. More back and forth. Guerrero with a head scissors takeover. He follows it up with a drop kick. Guerrero gets a half crab on. Otani gets to the ropes. Guerrero with a powerbomb for a 2 count. Guerrero with a brainbuster for a 2 count. Guerrero with a corner clothesline. He misses a second one when Otani moves, and Otani hits a springboard drop kick and a plancha to Guerrero on the outside. Otani with a big drop kick. Otani chokes Guerrero on the ropes. Otani with a camel clutch. Guerrero with a side salto for a 2 count. Otani with a German suplex for a 2 count. Guerrero with a top rope Hurricane Rana for a 2 count. Guerrero with a powerbomb for another 2 count. Otani with a leg submission. Guerrero gets to the ropes. Otani finally breaks. Otani spills through the ropes. Guerrero comes out after Otani. He hits a springboard crossbody to Otani. Otani suplexes Guerrero back in. He springboard drop kicks Guerrero. Guerrero fights out of a full Nelson. They exchange roll-ups. Otani gets the pin on the exchange. Mean Gene talks to Randy Savage. He says his focus is on Tenzan and not the triangle match. He is intense here. He says he is in the zone. Tenzan with Sonny Ono versus Randy Savage. Savage gets a tremendous ovation when he comes out. The bell rings. They circle each other. They lock up and vie for position. They get to the ropes and break. Another tie up and break. Tenzan beats down Savage. He chokes Savage in the corner. Tenzan with a front face lock. He then chops Savage down in the corner. Savage tries to get away. Tenzan with a spin heel kick. He continues the beat down. Savage falls to the outside and Tenzan follows. He drops Savage down on the barricade. He throws Savage back in. Tenzan with a fallaway slam and a headbutt for a 2 count. He misses the moonsault. Savage with a clothesline. He tries to suplex Tenzan and drops him on the top rope. Savage hits the elbow drop and gets the pin. It's now tied 3-3. Tony, Bobby, and Dusty talk about what just happened. Mean Gene talks to Ric Flair. He talks about the World Cup and the WCW Championship. He says Sting and Luger have to beat him. He says he will be the world's champion by the end of the night. Match 7. Kensuke Sasaki with Sonny Ono versus Sting. Sasaki is the current U.S. champion and had won the belt from Sting. Sting comes out with the U.S. flag. The crowd absolutely loves Sting. Sasaki attacks Sting right away. He runs Sting into several corners. Sasaki with a slam and a rear chinlock. Sting fights back. Sting hits the Stinger Splash. Sasaki comes back with a bulldog. Sting hits a bulldog and clotheslines Sasaki to the outside. Sasaki regroups with Ono. Back and forth. Sasaki with a power slam. Sasaki hits a brainbuster. Sasaki stomps Sting. Sasaki with an armbar as the crowd chants USA. Sasaki with an arm drag takedown. Sasaki puts the Scorpion Deathlock on Sting. Sting powers out. Sasaki with a leg drag. Sting comes back with a drop kick. Sting pushes off. He comes back and goes for the Scorpion. He gets it on. He pulls Sasaki to the middle and he gives up. The crowd goes wild. The other wrestlers come out to congratulate Sting. Mean Gene comes to the ring for the presentation of the World Cup of Wrestling. Sting says he did it for WCW and the USA. Tony, Bobby, and Dusty talk about what happened. Flashback to what led to the triangle match. Lex Luger versus Ric Flair versus Sting. Luger out first. Flair out next. He gets a big ovation. Sting out last and he is intense. Sting and Flair start. Flair tries to intimidate Sting. They lock up and break. Back and forth. Sting with the early advantage. He goes for the Scorpion, but Flair gets to the ropes and goes out to regroup. Flair with a hammerlock. Sting fights to get out. Flair has his feet on the ropes, but gets caught. Flair attacks Sting. Flair hits a corner whip. Sting fights back and unloads on Flair. Flair begs off. Sting with corner-mounted punches. Sting hits a bulldog. Flair rolls out and Sting follows. They fight out of the ring. Flair begs off. Flair sidesteps a dropkick attempt. He goes Luger and drops a knee on Sting. Back and forth. Flair beats Sting down. He lures Luger in to throw Sting outside while referee Nick Patrick deals with Luger. Flair drops a knee on Sting for a series of 2 counts. Flair stomps Sting. He then suplexes Sting. Sting comes back. Sting slams Flair and hits the superplex. He starts to cover, but Luger comes in. Flair comes back and tags Luger in. Flair bails out and Luger follows. He brings Flair back in. They trade shots. Luger with a shoulder block. He slams Flair again. Luger with corner-mounted punches. He drops a knee on Flair and gets a 2 count. Flair with a knee poke. Flair clips Luger's knee. Flair continues the attack on the leg. Flair hits Luger's knee with a chair. He continues the assault on the leg. He taunts Sting. Flair gets the figure 4 on. Flair grabs the ropes for leverage. He slaps Luger, who comes back and turns the move over. Flair breaks the hold. Luger suplexes Flair in from the apron and gets a 2 count. Luger slams Flair off of a turnbuckle. They trade shots. Flair challenges both Sting and Luger and then tags Sting in. Luger and Sting just stare at each other. They shake hands and the crowd boos. They lock up and drive to a corner. They break clean. Another lock up and break. Luger attacks Sting and runs him into a turnbuckle. Sting with corner-mounted punches. Luger backs away. Luger with elbows to Sting. They trade blows. Luger comes out of the corner with a clothesline to Sting. Luger drops Sting on the top rope. They fight outside. Sting with a crossbody off the top rope for a 2 count. Sting goes for a splash, but Luger gets his knees up. Luger up and dropping elbows on Sting. He gets some 2 counts. Sting comes back. He goes to put the deathlock on, but Luger gets to the ropes and low blows Sting. He hits an inverted atomic drop on Sting. They trade 2 counts. Sting hits the suplex. Sting with a bulldog to Luger. He misses a Stinger splash. Luger gets the torture rack on, but Sting's leg hits Nick Patrick and knocks him down. Flair comes in and clips Luger's leg. He then throws both out and revives Patrick. He counts them out and Flair wins. The crowd is livid at that. Jimmy Hart comes out to confront Flair. Tony, Bobby, and Dusty talk about everything that has happened. We then go to our next bout. Michael Buffer makes the introductions. WCW World Heavyweight Championship match. Randy Savage versus Ric Flair. Hart is still out in Flair's corner. The bell rings and they go at it. Flair attacks Savage in the corner. Back and forth. Savage knocks Flair down. Paul Orndorff comes down with a neck collar on. He stares at Flair. Savage with corner-mounted punches. Flair comes back with an atomic drop. Savage runs Flair into a turnbuckle. He sends Flair up and over in the corner, so take a shot if you're drinking at home. Savage comes off the top, and Flair catches him with a shot. Security sends Orndorff to the back as Flair and Savage battle to the outside, and Savage is ran into a barricade. He attacks Savage's injured arm and chops Savage. Hart also attacks Savage. Flair with a hammerlock back in the ring and uses the ropes for leverage. Flair attacks the injured arm. He drops knees on the arm. Savage tries to fight back. He knocks Flair down. Flair comes back with a sleeper. Savage drops out of the move and gets a close 2 count. Flair with a corner whip and a series of clotheslines. Savage with a slam, but Flair catches him as he comes off. Hart gets up on the apron to distract referee Randy Anderson. Hart throws Flair his megaphone, but Savage gets it and hits Flair with it. Savage goes up top. He hits the elbow drop, but Hart is still distracting Anderson. Brian Pillman and Chris Benoit come down. Savage throws them into each other. Flair is busted open. Arn Anderson comes down and hits Savage, and Flair covers him to get the pin and once again become the world champion. Some people in the crowd cheer. Pillman attacks Savage. The Horseman and Hart leave the ring as Anderson checks on Savage. Tony, Bobby, and Dusty talk about what just happened in about 1996 coming up and sign off from Nashville. We then get our end credits. After the main event, WCW held one additional match, taping it for a later broadcast. The match saw WCW United States Champion Kensuke Sasaki wrestle against the One-Man Gang. At the end of the match, the 400-plus pound One-Man Gang landed a splash on Sasaki and covered him for a pinfall. While Sasaki kicked out of the pinfall, referee Randy Eller still made the 3 count to give the victory to the One-Man Gang. After the bell ring, the One-Man Gang celebrated with the title belt. Moments later, however, the mistake was pointed out by another official and the match was restarted. Sasaki then pinned Gang to regain the title. Parts of the match were later shown on WCW Saturday Night, but they ended after One-Man Gang was declared the new champion. WCW never acknowledged that the match was restarted, choosing to recognize the One-Man Gang as champion instead. Final thoughts. An interesting show. The World Cup stuff was confusing and dragged, but the end was good. You can follow me on Facebook, Threads, and Instagram at TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it. We can also be found on Spotify and YouTube. Just search for The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, and don't forget to hit subscribe. And Patreon.com/BabyKangarooMedia for bonus episodes of The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, The Joey Harris Super Show, The Green Room, The Book Club Baristas, and so much more. Just $5 a month for hours of extra content. Thank you for joining me, folks. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.